This video will show you how to reassemble or put back together a GE dryer that we've already taken apart in a previous video. Safety first, so always disconnect power before servicing an electrical appliance. And be very careful of the inside edges of the pieces of this machine. They're all extremely sharp and can cut you and cause severe damage to you. Here's the inside of the dryer. We're going to start with making sure this idler arm with the little white pulley on it is seated properly against the base. Here's the idler pulley in the arm, and I'm just pulling it down. You can see how when it springs back it puts tension. That's the pulley of the motor where the belt will go on and around that other pulley on the idler or tensioner. Make sure the arm is seated all the way down against the bottom of the machine and forward towards the blower so that it will actually engage properly the belt switch. And what I'm doing is I'm bending this arm all the way over and then locking it, as you saw there, in place on the motor bracket. And that's what I'm going to do to keep this easier to install when I get the tub in place. All I'm doing now is showing you how this is going to be routed. The belt will go around the motor pulley, and of course that white pulley on the tensioner arm. Once you've got the tub in place, you're going to reach inside there and then carefully pull it off of the motor bracket where it's sitting there, and then gently, while still holding firmly to it, let the tension on the belt, and then it'll have tension. You don't want to let this snap into place or let go of it real fast. You want to actually put pressure on it as you're moving it back towards the sidewall of the dryer. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to be blind to it when we're inside the machine. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. The tub's going to be installed first before we put the belt on, so you won't be able to see what you're doing in there. To install the tub back into the machine, we want to lay the machine down, because this style here, the center part of the bearing goes straight in to the back bulkhead wall into that hole. And on the other style GE dryers, you actually would just feed it in through the front and then set it down in that little chamber. If you're going to move this dryer while it's on the floor, pick it up and move it. Don't slide it, because that bottom air duct, where the air duct comes out, is extremely sharp and it'll scratch your floors up. You saw me go ahead and put a rag or towel underneath there to protect the floor. Now when you're putting this in, you want to be careful not to damage the heating element coils, so be mindful of that. And you're going to have to spread the little sidewalls apart a little bit to get the tub to fit, and then go straight down right where it goes, and that center part of the tub, the center part of the tub, the bearing, should slide right into that hole that was on the bulkhead there on the back. And once you get it in place, it'll just snap down in there, and then it'll spin freely like that. So that's how you'll know that you've got it in place. Now that the tumbler is in place, go ahead and stand the machine back up and put it to where you can work on it for the rest of the assembly. Again, if you had the other type of GE dryer, we would have never had to lay it down in the first place. We would have just set the tumbler in and down in the saddle where it goes. Okay, now we're going to install the belt. So put it around the tub, slide it back to the same position where it originally was. You should see a wear pattern on the tub on the outer there, and just set it in place there. Now while we're going to be trying to install the belt on the inside underneath there onto the pulleys, we're going to go ahead and have this thing tilted, so we don't want the belt to fall back. So I'm taping close to the edge or close to the sidewalls the belt in place and on both sides. This will keep the belt from sliding back when I tilt the machine up to get in there and work on it. So the way I do these, usually I will go ahead and just bring it up on myself. You don't have to. You can just lean it against a wall or something. Just make sure it's going to be stable where it's not going to fall. And again, all these edges are very sharp, so I'm going to be sticking my arm through a very sharp opening on both sides of this tub there, because it takes two hands to do this, and you got to do it blind. So be very careful not to cut yourself. Get one hand, your right hand, through that hole and grab a hold of the tensioner arm. Remember, it's locked in place on that motor bracket. And then reach the other arm through the other side here. You may have to tilt, there you go, tilt that tub up a little bit. And then I'm positioning the belt around the pulley of the motor and then onto that plastic pulley of the tensioner. And then with my right arm, I pulled the tensioner a little bit more to the right and then grabbed a hold of it and then put it back in position where the tension was on the belt and everything was in place. You have to do it blind. You can't see in there. There's no way to access this style from the back. If you have the kind you can access from the back, you can just do it through the back panel and everything's easy to do. Go ahead and get the front panel next, and you'll see that little square hole on the bottom of the panel. It goes right onto the hinge there and support. And the next thing you want to do before you close it up, of course, is reattach the wires to the door switch. Pull that little plate to the left and then make sure that you put the wires back on the exact same terminals they came from. Do the longest one first and work your way up to the shortest one. Once those two are in place, go ahead and put that plate back where it goes. Make sure that tab slides into the side panel there. And then connect that plastic connector there, which is the shortest wire. And everything's connected. You got all three wires connected. You're going to just close this panel up. When you're closing it, a couple things you need to look for. One, make sure these ridges, you got that slot on the panel, make sure that they line up. And also lift gently on the tub about 1/4 inch or so that the glides clear the front panel and everything lines up. Next, install the screws that attach the panel to the side panels, the front panel to the side panels. One on each side in this corner like this. Just go ahead and put them right back where they came from and get them tight. And then remove the tape from the belt that was holding it in place. So get both pieces of tape off. Now we're ready to go ahead and start doing the top. Once you've got both those front panels tightened down. First thing I'm going to do, since on this one I had not done it yet, is remove the 4 screws that are on top of the control panel that hold it on. The reason is it's much easier to install that top deck with this panel loose. So take all 4 screws out. They can be Phillips or they can be Torx. This had Torx. On this one it was T20 was the size. Set those aside. Now you can see the panel will just lift off and come forward. If you need to access anything on the inside of the panel, that's how you do it. That's where your timer is, the water level selector, the start button, everything you need is right there. So I'm just going to leave it sitting there loose. Now I'm going to get the top deck and get ready to put it in place. On the top deck, there's some things you need to line on it as well. The part that goes towards the front panel there has to slide under that little thing there, and then that tab that sticks up goes in the hole on the side. Just like the slot is a slot for that hole for the tab, just like it was on the front panel. Okay, get it pretty much set in place, and then take that control panel that we had taken loose, and the 3 slots where those tabs go, just slide it into there. This will make things so much easier. And now just go ahead and slide that into place. You got to make sure everything aligns on those side panels. And once you get them all aligned, the front has those little tabs sticking up as well for the slots. Make sure they align as well. And then everything should snap into place. You may have to do a little gentle persuasion there. You don't want to get too rough with it. You should just be able to get everything to line up, and it should snap in place pretty easy. Once you've got all those in place, you go ahead and close up the control panel and realign it so that all the holes align, and you can reinstall those 4 screws across the top of it. Again, on this one it was the T20 size Torx. A lot of them still have just Phillips heads, so you can use whatever you need to get them back installed. And be gentle with these. They don't need to be tightened but about 5 or 6 foot-pound, and that's it. Now we're going to go ahead and install the screws to the front that hold the front of the deck in place. So make sure you go straight in through those holes where they came from, and it goes right up into the deck. And just make sure it's straight and it doesn't go off crooked, because if it goes crooked, of course, it won't line with the holes properly. Tighten them up real good and tight, and that will complete the reassembly of the dryer. Hope this was helpful to you.